Cairo, Seattle.
It's time to get schooled with the professor, John Clayton.
Welcome to Schooled with the Professor, and of course a great topic is quarterbacks in the National Football League, because this is going to be a year where I think quarterbacks even take it to another level, certainly as far as the interest. And joining us right now is a great quarterback in Joe Theismann. And Joe, of course, when you know it's going to be an important year when a trade happens in January. And you were there in Washington. You saw the Redskins make the move, Alex Smith for a third and a cornerback. Now that means Kirk Cousins is going to hit the market for free. First off, what was your reaction when you saw that they made this quick move and got an agreement to get Alex Smith?
Well, I thought it was very good for all parties involved. First of all, from a Redskins standpoint, there's been enough rhetoric and distractions, and people can say that there haven't been distractions over the Kirk Cousins contract and franchising, but it certainly has been a nuisance to everyone, especially the fans. The uncertainty that was wrapped around Kirk, the fans didn't really know what was going on, and constantly I'd get asked, what's the team doing? And I'd say, hey, you got to understand, what's Kirk doing? Kirk got himself to a situation where very few players can do it, John. He's a true free agent. He now has, and he happens to be a free agent at a time when the marketplace is open to probably 6 or 7 or 8 teams. So the bidding will go into probably close to $30 million after we saw what Jimmy Garoppolo's was. But I think it was good, first of all, to stop the rhetoric in Washington. I think Alex Smith, I thought, had a terrific year last year. I think in this offense, he'll be able to flourish even more. The Redskins need to add some receivers, no question, but they're pretty darn solid in a lot of other places. So I think it's good for Alex. I think it's great for Kirk because he basically gets what he wanted. And Andy gets, remember, they traded up from, 23 to 12 to get Patrick Mahomes. So they wanted him on the field. So now Kansas City is going to get the kid they want on the field, and Alex had a 1-year deal left. So from Patrick's standpoint, from Kirk's standpoint, and from Alex's standpoint, I believe everybody's in a position that they wanted to be in. And I saw Alex at the Super Bowl too, John, and he is just beyond excited to become a Washington Redskin.
Well, you'll appreciate this. I mean, Kirk was so excited, too, because I know we were trying to track him down because Alex was on Radio Row and Kirk was on Radio Row, and we were trying to track him down. So the very next day, I'm over by the elevator in the second floor of the Mall of America, and here comes Kirk Cousins coming over and says, hey, John, Kirk Cousins here. And he had 5 teammates that he had from high school, and they wanted to take a picture of 7. And so it's like, and then I saw him the next day. I mean, he came over and gave me a high five, almost took all the equipment that I had on Radio Row. But I mean, these are the 2 days after he knew that he wasn't going to be a Redskin. And I'm sure that, hey, he would have liked to, but I think, he's played it so that he was going to be the ultimate free agent quarterback.
He was. I mean, he really was. I mean, it worked out very, very well for him. And the one thing I hoped for him this year was that he got through the year healthy. I didn't want to see him get injured and have his situation decline when it came from a negotiating standpoint. But and you have to look at the year that Kirk had. To put it in perspective, he loses Chris Thompson, was really, I think, the best player on offense as far as contributor goes. I mean, Kirk had a great year, but Chris Thompson certainly made a difference. They were down to the third running back. Every one of their offensive linemen, well, actually the 5 that start and 2 additional ones are having off-season surgery. So everybody was hurt. Jordan Reed is the anomaly. Who knows? I mean, he's the mystery man in Washington. Will he play? Will he won't play? Vernon Davis has just been a warrior. Wide receivers, Josh Doxson still trying to learn how to play. Terrell Pryor, a total disaster. So that's basically what Kirk had to deal with from an offensive standpoint, and still posted some terrific numbers. It'll be interesting to see what his level going up is going to be. Have we seen the upper level of Kirk Cousins, or is there a higher level to go? I tend to think that there is a higher level, but it's certainly going to depend on the people around him. And John, you and I have talked for a number of years, and I've always believed this, and you've heard me say this. The quarterback position is the single most dependent position on the field. And it depends on what you have around you. And Kirk defied that to a degree this year, as Tom Brady has done on a consistent basis, because he has been the reason why the Pats have been as successful as they are on offense.
What was the feeling for these 2 years of negotiation? Because obviously Kirk played it as a good business person. He's making 19.9 as a franchise player. Redskins are offering 16. Then all of a sudden he gets up to 23.9 and are offering somewhere in the 21 area. I mean, it just didn't seem that the team wanted to go to a certain level that they were as far as they were paying him. And Kirk realizes, hey, I do 2 years of this. I'm making over $22.5 million, and then I become a free agent. I've got to play it this way.
Exactly. I think it was. I think Kirk would have loved to have stayed in Washington because I asked him about it. We've been friends. We've talked a lot on different occasions, and he would have loved to have stayed in Washington. But there's the business side of it, and he did. He played the business side of it like very, very few players. And I can't remember. Maybe you can help me. In the last 5 years, say 10 years, has there been a player in this position? Maybe Albert Hainsworth, who wound up with the Washington Redskins and had a terrific year as a free agent, then wound up being a true free agent, but not going through 2 franchise periods. Has there been a player put themselves in a position where Kirk Cousins is today?
Very few. I mean, Peyton Manning kind of had it a different way when they drafted Andrew Luck, and all of a sudden he became a free agent. And, I remember back when they had a little bit of money issues back with the Colts, many years back, he was franchised and he negotiated off the franchise tag. But that's what everybody does right now. You negotiate off the franchise tag. I'm sure Jimmy Garoppolo did the same thing. I know it's 23-3, but then the next one was going to be 27. And so ultimately, they're going to have to go into the 27 range to satisfy, Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco.
And then it's going to have to be, and what happens if Jimmy becomes the highest paid, Kirk's on the market, that number has to go up. I mean, it's quite plain that number, in all likelihood, should go up. And I think the other thing is New Orleans is not going to let Drew go. That Jimmy was going to be signed in San Francisco. But then you say Cleveland, the Jets, the Bills, the Vikings, Jacksonville, Denver. I don't think John Elway is in a position to want to roll the dice on another rookie quarterback, although there are 4 young men out there that are going to transition into professional football, but he went through that with Paxton Lynch, and it hasn't been a very pleasant experience for them. So he has to make some kind of a move out there, I think, for a veteran. And again, Kirk hits the market when who else is out there? Case Keenum, right? I mean,
Case Keenum, and if I have every Viking quarterback, Sam Bradford.
Sam Bradford, Teddy Bridgewater, but I'm saying they haven't played at the level that Kirk has. And the one thing that he's been able to do is he's been able to show up every week and be able to play games. And that's a credit to him and his conditioning and his training and his just the quality of player he is.
I was doing the sideline on the Redskin game against Seattle, and it was incredible how Kirk was just able to just get hit and hit and hit, because in that game they had 5 injured offensive linemen. They were down to 1 starter that was able to go out there and play. And you could see it. The blocking wasn't there. The running was a little bit better than I think expected just based on the offensive linemen that were out there. But he's out there with 4 backups and somehow, some way, battled his way through it, hit the winning passes to win the game. And I thought that was huge as far as just showing how tough he is.
I agree with you. I mean, the Seattle game, the Redskins had an opportunity to win the Kansas City game. Josh Doxson has a chance to make a play, didn't get it done. So Kansas City beats them late. They had the New Orleans Saints. They had the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, you look at Seattle in Seattle, whether they're a playoff team or not is just very difficult to beat. So you look at those 4 games, Minnesota, Kansas City, New Orleans, and Seattle, and you look at the way this football team played, and that's how close the Redskins are. I really believe this, and this isn't Homer conversation, John. The Redskins can compete with anybody in the league when they're healthy. But that's sort of what you can say about a lot of teams. But they were so close under such dire circumstances with players that just literally they picked up a guy on a Thursday and he starts on a Sunday. They had that offensive lineman do that. Your tight end position, like I said, the tight end position has become, I think, one of the paramount positions in football. Everybody talked about the left tackle, but now you have open sides on both sides. So the left and right tackles almost have equal significance. But if you don't have a tight end in this day and age, it makes a world of difference. And you take a look at out there in Seattle when Graham got healthy. When Jimmy got healthy, all of a sudden the offense changed. You look in New Orleans. You look at New England. You look at New England, what they've done, and so the tight end position is one that's so extremely important today.
When you look at the quarterback position, and now you start to see the salaries going to $30 million, I'm sure that's going to happen here within the next year or so. Do you stagger from back when you were playing and seeing how the money is just kind of rolling in?
John, I choke. I choke on it. Literally, it's like I'll be sitting down having an orange juice or apple juice or a cup of coffee or something, and all of a sudden I'll open the paper and it'll go, Jimmy Garoppolo, $27 million. Are you kidding me? I think it's great. The market bears it. These young guys have got themselves in a position. The owners the owners can afford $27 million. They're not hurting. So you're in a business right now where the numbers are absolutely astronomical. Here's something in perspective, and I believe this is accurate. In 1984, when I became a free agent, I was, I believe, the fourth highest paid player in the National Football League at $1 million a year. So that sort of puts everything into perspective now over the last 25 years, and gets you to a point where you start to appreciate how the game and the numbers have continued to appreciate. I don't think the game is that much different. Young people come up and say, "Oh, the game is so different today." The only thing different is they throw it around like the old AFL. If anything, it's regressed all the way back to the AFL, where the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Diego Chargers and the Texans, they throw the ball all over the place. And so to me, I think it's a short-lived career. If you're blessed enough to be healthy and you're in the right position like where Kirk is, you take advantage of it, and the rest of your life is pretty much set. And then you have to be smart with what you do. And believe me, the last person they're ever going to have to worry about losing any money will be Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. He is as buttoned up.
In other words, he must be cheap. He must be cheap.
I didn't want to say frugal was the word I think I was looking for, John. Uh-huh. But he's frugal. He's smart with his money, and you know what? He absolutely loves the game of football, and that's the whole thing. I look at a lot of guys out there that play the game of football because it's an opportunity to earn money, and then I visit with other guys that literally just love putting on the uniform. I used to love to practice. I loved practice. It was so much fun to get out there, rain, sleet, snow, nice days. I hated wind, but other than that, it was, who I see does that? Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. I see Russell Wilson as a football player's football player. This kid just absolutely loves to put the uniform on and go out and play. And when you're 70% of an offense, it just, and the fact that he made it through the year half healthy is incredible too, by the way.
Well, have you ever seen a player, not just a quarterback, do what he did in 2016? First off, he gets a high ankle sprain, and he doesn't miss a practice. Then about a week or so later, he gets an MCL injury, a third-degree MCL, and he doesn't miss a game. That's incredible.
Well, see, that's the point I'm talking about. Only guys that love the game would do that. Now, here's a credit to Pete Carroll and his staff. A lot of times when you have someone like Russell who has those kind of injuries, because of the economic commitment to the individual and the significant contribution to the on-the-field play, you say, take some time off. We can live with a game or two. Maybe we drop one of two. We can live with it, but we need you to be healthy. Russell wouldn't have any of that. And to Pete's credit, I laughed. Pete, let him go out and be the guy that figured out he could get it done. I got a kick out of when Russell Wilson went into so-called concussion protocol for 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. He walks in the tent. He walks out of the tent. I guarantee you, if he'd have stayed in that tent, he would not have played football the rest of that game.
Yeah.
But that's how important football was to him. And that's there are a lot of players like him. There are some, like in every business, there are some that don't feel as committed to doing the job as others. And he just happens to be one of those exceptional young men that I think you look at him and, he's like Brett Favre. Brett Favre was all he was a 12-year-old kid wrapped up in an older body. Mm-hmm. And I think Russell's body isn't as old, but he's still that same little 12-year-old kid.
Where do you put Russell in the hierarchy of quarterbacks now?
I'd put him somewhere around 10, 11. Kirk's probably around that same category. I think that will change here in the next 2 to 3 years where he will move up. But, he's not really, unfortunately this year it's so hard to gauge him because he had to run for his life so often. Mm-hmm. I think he's a pretty good pocket passer, but we really don't know. We really just don't know how good he is out of the pocket. I think he's pretty darn good. I think he's pretty accurate, but there are times when it gets away from him a little bit. I do know this, that what I see in Russell Wilson is exciting because I know there's an upside still to go. We have not seen the best of Russell Wilson yet. And that, to me, is very exciting.
One thing that's real interesting is that just in the transition, of course, now, in fact, you'll know this. I mean, what expectations do you think Brian Schottenheimer will have working with Russell Wilson?
I think Brian, Brian's done a terrific job everywhere he has been. Maybe it was just time for a change. Sometimes a little bit of freshness, a little bit of newness gets everybody excited. The juices will start to flow again for Russell because he's going to be challenged from an offensive standpoint to learn new concepts. And this is the problem I have with the collective bargaining agreement, by the way. Brian's not going to be able to work with Russell until April, which really doesn't seem fair that you're bringing in a new offense and the quarterback gets at the same time as the rest of the team. I think that's something that the league has to look at. And the players, not the league so much, but the players have to look at it and say, this isn't doing the product much good at all. It's not doing our players much good to sit them for 3.5 months, 4 months before they really get a chance to get into the offense, to work on their trade, to be better football players. I think that's something that certainly needs to be looked at. The other thing is I think roster sizes need to go to 50. With the concussion protocol as it has entered professional football, we lose more guys during a game than we did just to other simple types of injuries, whether it be not major, but all kinds of different injuries. But now you add concussions to that, and it's different than it was. And I think that number needs to be revisited, and there needs to be more players available on the field to continue to have the product to be where it wants. But I think it's exciting for Brian too. And, you don't get too many people like Russell Wilson to work with.
Hey, final question here, Joe. As you watched the Super Bowl and you saw the play calling of Doug Peterson, you watched from afar when Sean McVay took over the Rams. There's now seems to be a good group of young coaches that now have incorporated some of the college things, putting them in there and kind of, maybe making it not necessarily easier for some of the quarterbacks to make the transition to college, but making it a little bit different and really RPOs and all these different things that kind of make the game a little bit more exciting.
I agree with you. And to me, I'm excited to see professional coaches have a chance to move into professional ranks. Instead of owners going out and bringing in college coaches that don't understand our game, that they have to try and adjust to what we do. I think it's great that, all these young minds are coming up. They've been trained on such great trees. There's been such great mentors out there for them. And now they have an opportunity to sort of do it their way. And I go back to Kyle Shanahan and Mike when they were in Washington, when Robert Griffin III came here. Probably 35% of that offense was what he ran at Baylor. And then they have to learn. But see, there's the foundation is there, the RPOs and all that other stuff. But the bottom line is you're going to have to learn how to throw the football out of the pocket if you ever feel like you're going to be successful and have a career in the National Football League.
Hey, Joe, always great catching up with you. Looking forward to seeing you soon, and get ready for another season. It should be good.
I know, John, and we didn't even touch on the young ones coming in, but let's do that another time.
Okay, that sounds good. Joe Theismann here on Schooled with a Professor. And that does it for this week's podcast. In between episodes, you can follow me on Twitter at Clayton ESPN. If you enjoy these weekly one-on-one conversations, consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to the show. Thanks for listening. See you next time on Schooled with a Professor.